Imagine waking up tomorrow, grabbing your phone to check your notifications, and realizing your cellular network is down. Not just a dropped call, a total system-wide blackout. You try to go to work, but your modern car won't start because its internal computer system is bricked. You head to the store, but credit card readers are dead. Behind the scenes, the cloud servers powering OpenAI, Google, and Amazon completely freeze. Within 48 hours, the global stock market plunges into a literal freefall, wiping out trillions of dollars in retirement accounts overnight. This isn't a sci-fi movie. This is the exact, real-world math of what happens if a single, tiny island in the Western Pacific stops working. An island smaller than the state of Maryland. An island that millions of people couldn't pinpoint on a map if their life depended on it. Taiwan. For decades, this strip of land has quietly become the absolute linchpin of modern civilization. It's not because of its military size or vast oil reserves. It's because modern life has a massive, terrifying single point of failure. Right now, Taiwan sits at the center of the ultimate geopolitical chess match. It is a global tech titan, a critical highway for global trade, and the exact spot where the world's biggest superpowers, the United States and China, are locked in a high-stakes staring contest. So how did this tiny island become so ridiculously important? And why do experts genuinely believe that whatever happens next in Taiwan will dictate the future of the global economy? To understand the stakes, we have to look at the ground reality. At first glance, Taiwan looks like an underdog. Sitting just 110 miles off the southeastern coast of mainland China, the island is home to roughly 23 million people. To make matters tougher, a massive, towering mountain range cuts right through the center of the island, forcing almost the entire population to crowd into the flat western plains. It's a narrow strip of hyper-dense, futuristic cities pressed tightly between jagged peaks and the open ocean. But do not let the size fool you. Over the last few decades, Taiwan pulled off an economic miracle, transforming itself into an absolute powerhouse. They build everything from high-tech medical gear to world-class sporting goods. But the real game changer isn't just what they build, it's where they are built. Taiwan sits directly alongside the busiest shipping lanes on the planet. Every single day, massive cargo ships packed with trillions of dollars in raw materials, energy, and consumer goods navigate through these narrow waters to connect Asia with American and European markets. If this single choke point gets blocked, global supply chains instantly choke. The real source of Taiwan's mind-blowing global leverage isn't found in its shipping ports or its strategic waters. It's found inside highly restricted, ultra-sterile buildings that look like sci-fi movie sets. Spaces where engineers in full-body protective gear handle objects so microscopic they are literally invisible to the human eye. The DNA of modern technology, semiconductor chips. But before Taiwan became the tech capital of the world, history dealt it a hand that placed it at the center of a political fault line. To understand why Washington and Beijing are so obsessed with this island, we have to rewind the tape 70 years. History has a wild way of shaping our present. For 50 years, leading up to the end of World War II in 1945, Taiwan was actually ruled by Japan, undergoing heavy industrialization and modernization. But when Japan surrendered, control of Taiwan went to the Republic of China, governed by a political party known as the Kuomintang, or KMT. At that exact moment, mainland China was tearing itself apart in a brutal civil war. On one side was the Republic of China government, led by Chiang Kai-shek. On the other side was the Chinese Communist Party, led by Mao Zedong. By 1949, the Communists won the mainland, establishing the People's Republic of China in Beijing. Chiang Kai-shek and 2 million of his soldiers, officials, and civilians fled across the ocean to Taiwan. They set up shop in Taipei, claiming they were still the rightful government of all of China. Beijing claimed the exact opposite. Suddenly, you had 2 entirely separate governments claiming to be the real China, completely refusing to recognize each other. For decades, the US and many Western nations backed Taiwan. But by the 1970s, the geopolitical tide turned. As Beijing's economic and diplomatic weight grew too massive to ignore, Western countries shifted their official diplomatic recognition to the People's Republic of China. In 1971, the United Nations officially handed China's seat over to Beijing. This created the bizarre, complex diplomatic reality we live in today. Taiwan has its own fully functioning democratic government, its own military, its own currency, its own passport, and its own constitution. Yet on the global stage, it exists in a diplomatic twilight zone. But while the world was debating its status, Taiwan did something incredible on the inside. They dropped martial law, opened up free speech, and transformed from a strict authoritarian state into one of the most vibrant, progressive democracies in Asia. They realized they didn't have vast oil reserves or gold mines to secure their future, so they bet the house on something far more valuable: human brainpower, engineering, and a single high-stakes industry that would make them completely irreplaceable to the rest of the world. If Taiwan went offline tomorrow, the impact would hit Americans instantly. It wouldn't just be an abstract news headline. It would be an immediate crisis in your pocket. Your iPhone, your gaming console, your smart TV, your medical devices, the servers powering the military, they all rely on semiconductors. These tiny squares of silicon contain billions of microscopic switches called transistors that process data at lightning speed. To give you an idea of the insane scale we are talking about, engineers are carving complex, multi-layered circuit pathways onto silicon wafers measured in nanometers, billionths of a meter. A single chip can hold tens of billions of these switches. Thousands of them could fit across a single strand of human hair. A single speck of dust or a stray hair floating in the air can completely destroy a batch of chips worth millions of dollars. That's why these factories, called fabs, are literally thousands of times cleaner than a hospital operating room. Back in 1987, a legendary engineer named Morris Chang founded the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, or TSMC. Instead of designing chips and trying to sell them to consumers, TSMC pioneered a revolutionary foundry model. They told the world, "You design the chips. Don't waste billions building factories. We will manufacture them for you with flawless precision." It was a massive gamble. Today, that gamble underpins the entire global tech economy. Because chip manufacturing became so advanced and so ridiculously expensive, almost everyone else quit building their own factories. A single modern fab today can cost upwards of $20 billion to construct. As a result, TSMC has a near monopoly on the absolute highest-end chips on Earth, the brains powering every single advanced AI model, high-end smartphone, and stealth fighter jet. But here is the catch. Taiwan's tech miracle doesn't happen in a vacuum. The semiconductor supply chain is a masterpiece of global teamwork. The software is designed in America, the ultra-complex lithography machines are built exclusively by ASML in the Netherlands, the high-purity chemicals come from Japan, and it all converges in Taiwan to be spun into technological gold. It's the most deeply interconnected web humanity has ever built, and that makes it incredibly fragile. Remember the supply chain headaches during the 2020 pandemic? Car dealerships were empty, and electronics were backordered for months, all because of minor factory pauses. Now, multiply that by 1,000. That is what a true Taiwan shutdown looks like. Taiwan's massive leverage isn't just about what happens inside TSMC's cleanrooms. It's also a matter of cold, hard military geography. For American military strategists, Taiwan is the crown jewel of what is called the First Island Chain, a continuous barrier of islands running from Japan down through Taiwan and the Philippines. For decades, this chain has acted as a strategic maritime wall. For the United States and its allies, it keeps the peace by ensuring free and open access to global trade routes. For Beijing, it represents a geopolitical barrier right in its backyard, restricting its navy's direct, unmonitored access to the deep waters of the open Pacific Ocean. When you mix world-dominating technology with intense military geography, the result is an incredibly tense environment. It's why any military posturing, naval exercises, or political speeches in the Taiwan Strait send shockwaves through global markets. The world isn't just watching because they care about tech stocks. They're watching because this is the exact intersection where economic survival meets superpower security. So, what happens if the worst-case scenario strikes and Taiwan's semiconductor industry completely grinds to a halt? Economic think tanks have run the data, and the numbers are absolutely staggering. Bloomberg estimates that a full-scale conflict or blockade involving Taiwan could cost the global economy a jaw-dropping $10 trillion, roughly 10% of global GDP, dwarfing the economic damage of the 2020 pandemic and World War II. The fallout would be instant. The tech sector. Artificial intelligence innovation hits an immediate brick wall. Server farms can't upgrade. The auto and aerospace industries, assembly lines across America and Europe freeze because they lack basic microcontroller components. The consumer. Prices for basic goods skyrocket as global trade routes stall. You might wonder, why don't we just build these factories somewhere else? The US, the European Union, and Japan are doing exactly that, pouring tens of billions of dollars into domestic chip manufacturing acts to build advanced fabs on their own soil. But here is the reality check. You cannot just duplicate Taiwan's ecosystem overnight. It took Taiwan 40 years to cultivate the specialized engineering talent, the hyper-efficient supply networks, and the industrial infrastructure required to make these chips flawlessly at scale. Building the physical factory takes years. Replicating the collective human expertise takes decades. Until then, the world remains completely dependent on a single island. At first glance, Taiwan looks like just another beautiful island in a vast ocean. But appearances can be incredibly deceiving. History placed it along a political fault line. Brilliant long-term strategy made it economically indispensable. And jaw-dropping human engineering made it the technological brain of the modern world. Taiwan's true power isn't measured by the size of its territory. It is measured by the sheer scale of its connections. Every single time you send a text, drive a modern vehicle, log into a cloud server, or interact with an artificial intelligence model, you are actively relying on a piece of technology that likely traces its origins back to a single island in the Western Pacific. In our world, global influence isn't just about who has the biggest landmass or the most raw resources. Sometimes, the places that define our collective future are the ones we least expect. The critical nodes that tie the entire global network together. The story of Taiwan isn't just a story about geopolitics or microchips. It is a striking reminder of just how deeply connected our world has truly become, and why protecting those connections matters to every single one of us. If you like these kind of informative videos, like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Comment below your thoughts. See you in the next one.